Who's your emergency contact? Who should be notified in case of death? Welcome to the USP, where I spent the last 2+ decades of my life. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day. His name is SP from San Francisco, from the Bay. Him and I, we met back in 2001. We've been on 3 different yards together. We started out in Lompoc together. Then when we got transferred to Victorville, we had laid the yard down. So I was on one of the first buses to Victorville. He was still waiting to come to Victorville, but after the laydown, they stopped shipping everybody else that was still in Lompoc to Victorville and started shooting them all across the country. And he ended up in USP Florence. Well, a few years later, in 2006, we met back up in Beaumont. I showed up first, and he came later. And then around 2012 or 13, when I was in Atwater, he ended up coming over there from Atwater and ended up going home from Atwater. So we practically grew up together. I first met him in Lompoc when I went into F Block. I moved to F Block to go hang out with my homeboy Billy Leon from Utah, from Provo. And he introduced me to SP, and through the course of the time over there, we got pretty cool. You know, we played poker, we drank and smoked together, and we've been lifelong friends. I just spoke to him about a week ago. He had called me and he was asking about if I did an episode in Beaumont when the Texas Crip and the California Crips, I think he said it was his Texas family, but they were Crips with Pete and his boys that went up. Just to give you a refresh of just to refresh the story for a little bit for you. It was they had put a Texas dude that supposedly been a Crip in a California Crip sale, but the California Crip didn't want him in that sale. The night before, they went and politicked about it, and they decided that the Texas dude can stay in that California dude's cell. But when they got back to the cell, the California dude's like, nah, you can't, I don't give a fuck what they said out there. You ain't living in here. So in the morning, the Texas dude went and told his homeboy. And that morning, I was going out for breakfast when I seen Pete and some of his homeboys, overheard them like, man, fuck that. Let's just go upstairs and holler at him right now. So they went up to DB. I lived in CA. In Beaumont, the units are stacked atop of each other. So you got one unit, so you got a long ass flight of stairs, right? So they go upstairs in the top unit in DB and went and stabbed that Crip dude up and his homeboys. But at the time, when they were stabbing him up, they hit a dude from Virginia. But somehow the Virginia made out unit, went and told the DC, the DMV, and then from there, you know, like I said, everybody in prison, they all have alliance, they all have dudes they fuck with that they're willing to aid and assist. So the yard ended up blowing up. All the blacks got into it because no matter what car you were from, you were affiliated through your relationship, friendship, alliance with somebody, and you had to pick sides, right? So he went back and watched the story. He's like, man, you didn't tell about our part, what you did, you know, talking about me. And the part that he wanted me to emphasize on was just really the relationship that I have with these individuals and the length and degree that I would go through to aid and assist. Like, I know my limitations. Like, one thing without a doubt, if I got a homie and he's outnumbered, I'm never going to walk away and later watch him get slaughtered. Well, in this particular incident, you know, with SP, he already had all his California dudes out there. You know, all the Bay Area dude, him, Stan, Messi, couple other ones that I don't remember, right? But they were all out there in the corner by yard 1 in front of A block. So at the time, when everything was jumping off, we was coming out of chow, and we're sitting on the ground because they shoot when shit pops off on the yard. They're shooting a cushion grenade. That's the first thing they shoot is a cushion grenade. That shit rings your ear. That's why they call it a cushion grenade. That shit, they drop the bomb, boom, everybody's ducking, and you can hear on the intercom, everybody on the ground, everybody on the ground. They have a recording that says, you know, it goes in English and in Spanish, something to the effect, everybody on the ground, or shots will be fired. Like, I don't know exactly, I can't remember exactly what the recording says, but it's letting you know, get your ass on the ground or your ass gonna get shot. So I were on the ground, everybody on the yard is on the ground. You know, the shit's popping off in the unit. COs are running up there. Everybody else on the yard, we're on the ground, sitting down. It started drizzling a little bit. Like I told you in that story, I just had my brand new kicks. Went and got it, that morning. And while we're sitting out there, we're alert. We're keeping our eyes out because at the time we don't know the extent of what's going on. We just know that Pete and his boys went upstairs and they were supposed to hit the California Crips. But the California in Beaumont is all one car. Whether you're a Crip, a Blood, Bay Area, down south, as far as the blacks were concerned, they all rode together. Yeah, they all have their own like individual politics when it comes to the Crip car or the Blood car or the Bay Area, and then the Bay Area gets break down to Frisco, Oakland, and all the rest of it. But being out of state, all of them have an alliance. Now, if you're on a California yard, you won't. They don't have that alliance unless it's against somebody out of state. But the Crips and the Bloods and the Bay, they'll bump heads and so on and so forth. But it's with every group when they're out of town, when they're in a different region, they all have a coalition. As you know, there's a Midwest coalition, and then there's a folk coalition, like with the GDs, the Latin Kings, and Vice Lords. You all know they're all beef on the streets, especially the Latin Kings and the Gangsters' Disciples. But while I was in Florence, they had a coalition. They aid and assist each other because they're outnumbered by whoever's on that yard. In Florence, it's against the Mexicans or against the DC and all the rest of it, right? So back to the story. While I'm sitting, me and my homeboys were on the gate. We're sitting down because you gotta get down or your ass gonna get shot. But while we're sitting down, we see scrimmages going off. A couple dudes, they get up. They're crawling closer to each other, closer to each other. They get up. As soon as they get close enough, they run over there and they're stabbing and fighting each other. Then the police would run over there, try to contain it, break it up. And while they're doing that, some other group on some other part of the yard will get up and start scuffling, and so the rest. So it was just in spurts, just blowing up everywhere around the yard. So at this time, like I said, I don't know the extent of what was going on upstairs, but I'm watching, and I can see that it's the alliance that are fighting. They might not have been from California or from Texas, but these are the group that align themselves with either the California dudes or the Texas dude, and they're all bumping. But the DC, the DMV, they're going up against some of the Texas dudes because that's who went up there and stabbed one of their homies. So as we're watching, we can see that okay, it's not going to be contained in that unit. It's not just these two groups. It's every black on a yard, and everybody has an alliance. So while we're sitting down, I can see a group of Texas dude in a corner. They're all grouped up, and I can hear them talking. They're like, "Yeah, man, them niggas over there. They're over there in the corner talking about the California dudes." So when I hear that, I tell my homeboy, I say, hey man, I fuck with them dudes over there in Cal. I fuck with SP and them dudes from the Bay, and I'm gonna head over there. But my homeboy is like, man, that ain't got nothing to do with us. We gotta, stay out of it and all this. Yeah, for the most part, they're right. But for me, when it comes to politics, when it comes to things like that, I just can't allow somebody I know to be a sitting duck. So I'm like, yeah, okay, there's gonna be a limit of where I can assist and aid, but at the same time, I'm just not gonna sit here and do nothing. So I see a Texas dude grouping up. So I start, wiggling my way off the ground to go towards the Bay Area dude. So on my way over there, there's this Hawaiian dude named Kamanaka. And a story that I shared with him, he's Hawaiian and Japanese, but he ended up switching cars and running with the Midwest, trying to get away from me because I found out, some of the bullshit that he was doing while he was on the yard. And I felt like, if he put himself in a predicament with these DC dudes, because he was dealing with some DC dudes, and I went up and told him about dealing with the DC dudes that, if they burn you, they take your shit or whatever, regardless if I like you or not, I'm not gonna be able to stay on the yard and watch that happen to you because it's a reflection on me. Now, I tell you all the politics are different depending on what yard you go to. Most yards, once you get to the East Coast, the Asian and Islanders don't necessarily ride together. And when it comes to the Asian, they might even get broken up. Like when you go to a yard and there's a bunch of Vietnamese or a bunch of Chinese, I think those are the majority of Asians that are in the feds. They might have their own car. So if you're Cambodian or Laos, they might not really function with you. It depends, right? And the only reason that we had such a strong coalition out west, with the Islanders, with the Asians, the Islanders, was because of the people that was there. I became real good friends with Bryson. As you know, he's Hawaiian, and out here in Utah, I grew up with Polys. Polys meaning Polynesians, Samoans, and Tongans. So I consider them my people. So when I get to a yard, there's a divide. By me just being there, I create that relationship that we all ride together. So with Kamanaka, after I warned him about dealing with the DC, he didn't want to listen to me. So I started pressing him. I started extorting him. Him and a dude named Shaq from Hawaii, they were, paying me every week or whatever because it was just like, regardless if I like you or not, if something happens to you dealing with these DC dudes, I'm gonna get involved. So if I'm gonna risk my life to protect our image and our reputation, well, I feel like I need to be compensated for it. So that was the issue with Kamanaka. But a couple weeks prior to that, I had got surrounded by the Midwest dudes, and I think I shared this story. And they were telling me, "Hey, whatever you got going on with Kamanaka, that ain't got nothing to do with us. But once that shit is finished, understand that he rides with the Midwest now." And at that time, it was only like five of us, and we were sitting under this pavilion over there in Beaumont, where all the tables are where we play poker. And there's only two entrances to get there, but the entrance is just one of them is just wide as a double door. And when I looked up to see what was going on, the Midwest and the Muslim, because while I was in a conversation with this dude named Q who had a yard for the Midwest, this imam showed up who had the yard for the Muslims, and along with them is their security and their homies. So when I looked up, I seen both of the walkways blocked, right? Because you know I I'm pretty well mannered, mild mannered, and I'm pretty like I keep my composure pretty well. But when I feel like somebody's pushing up on me, then it's just like all conscious to the wind, right? But my homeboy, Bullet, rest in peace. Um, yeah, looked at me and was like, shaking his head and telling me to look around. And when I looked around, I see both the entrance were cut off. So he was preventing me from, uppercutting dude and doing what I was gonna do. But anyway, the conversation was, hey man, after you get done doing whatever, after he's done paying you whatever he's paying you, after that he's off limit because he's riding with the Midwest. I was like, all right, and I told him, look, when I'm done with it, when I'm done with what I'm doing with him, then we'll come back and have this conversation again. And that's how we left the conversation. But my intention was like, yeah, once I'm done doing what I'm gonna do, I can't allow this Hawaiian dude to switch car to go ride with the Midwest. That just doesn't happen. That's gonna be a bad look on me, a bad look on my reputation, and the rest of it. So my game plan was once he finished paying me off what he owes me or what I told him that he owed me, then I'm gonna punish him, and the homies are already gonna know I'm not gonna let it go. And when I do punish him, the Midwest have no choice but to get involved because they're not gonna allow me to punish him and not do anything about it because then it's gonna look like it's just all bark or no bite. So the game plan was when I bust my move, each one of us is gonna pick one of these Midwest dudes that were in part of the conversation and hit them too because we're not gonna be on the yard no more. At the time, there was only like 5 or 6 of us, and we don't stand a chance if we're going head. If we all come out to the yard and they're grouping up and we're grouping up, man, it's 5 of us to whatever 40, 50 of them, right? So that's just like suicidal, right? So our game plan was to hit these individuals and get shipped out and go on our way. But before that could happen, all this shit happened on the yard with the blacks. And the result of that was we all got locked down and they brought in the bus and started shipping us out and closed down the prison. But prior to that, during that incident, when I'm watching everything that's going on and I see, okay, they're just targeting California dudes now. They don't care if they were Crips or whatever. And I see my homeboy SP down there by A unit by the rec yard with the basketball court and the handball court. I see him grouped up with his homeboys. So I told my homie, I was like, hey man, at the very least, I gotta go give them a heads up. So we all got up, scooted over there because we're trying to duck the police too because you got police on the yard. They're running up to all these different scuffles. So we're just trying to scoot so we can get away from. Because at the time where I'm sitting, I'm right there in the intersection. We call it the intersection. Why we come out CA, you can go straight through into yard 3, and there's an intersection that goes over to F building or A and B building. So we get on the other side of the gate before they close it. And on that side is where the Texas dudes were all grouped up. So we just got up and I just started walking. And as I'm walking, I see a dude Kamanaka. Now, the yard's blowing up. This would have been like a perfect time for me to just beat up this dude and whatever, get lost in the shuffle, right? But the issue was more pressing that I let the homies from the Bay know what's going on. So when I walked past Kamanaka, and at that time, Kamanaka was on crutches. I don't know what he did to his leg, but he had crutches. So when I walked past him, I said, hey, let me get that. He's like, what? I said, let me get those crutches. And he just looked at me, and before he answered, I just grabbed the crutches from him. Like he thought, I don't know, in his mind, he probably thought I was going to hit him with the crutches. But I just grabbed the crutches, and I took the crutches from him, and I walked down over to SP. When I got to SP, I said, hey, them dudes are coming. They're grouped up over there in the corner because now the CO comes, all the gates, all the yard are split. You're in a fence with locked gates, and even the walkway, like I said, where the intersection is, there's a divider that they can close and lock up to keep everybody contained in little areas. Now we're all on the side of A and B building. So when they close that walk, we're just stuck there right in front of the unit. it's a big area, but we're stuck there in the unit, and the Texas dude are right by the gate, while SP and them are by the unit. So I grabbed the crutches. I started walking over to SP, and I let him know, hey, them dudes grouping up. The way it sounds like they're gonna be headed over here. I was like, what's up? I'm letting him know, like, hey, I'm here. What's up? And to SP's credit, man, much love to him. That's the homie. He's like, man, he's like, we got enough of us over here to handle it, man. You guys good? Go ahead. So I gave SP the crutches, and we end up walking back to about the middle of the fence and put her put her back to the fence because to stay out the way. Because if I'm too close, then I might get the itching and seeing and want to get involved. And the homies that I had on the yard with me, like they were good dudes, but they're more strict with the policy than I was as far as not involving ourselves in other people's issues and all that. And I don't involve myself in other people's issues. I don't politic, I don't get into conversation, but if I have a friend that's getting about to get into it, I don't care if he's black, white, Mexican, or whatever. I really fuck with that dude and he's outnumbered. There's just no way in my heart that I can just walk away and let that shit happen. You know what I mean? I'm not built like that. So what SP wanted me to share with you guys. Well, I don't know if he wanted me to share with you guys, but he was like, "Man, you didn't talk about the part where you came and gave me the crutches." You know what I mean? And, you know, and like, and he had told me, during our conversation last week, he's like, "Yeah, man, that made a difference because they're outnumbered by the Texas dude. We're in Beaumont, Texas, so there's gonna be more Texas dude than anybody else on that compound, especially when it comes to the blacks and the blacks. I mean, the Mexican is two Texas gang, Texas MA and a Texas syndicate. So everybody on that yard, you're outnumbered by the people that are from Texas. So through our conversation, he was just sharing with me how he appreciated that, all the times that, I came through. You know, we did a lot of time together, me and him. And, you know, bonds are formed in the fire, right? Why why I speak so highly of these people that I've done time with is like there's a difference between being friends with somebody out here where you see them at barbecues and birthday parties and stuff, and it's just good times, you know. Well, when you're behind that wall, you're in the trenches, and yeah, you're gonna know a lot of people on the yard or whatever. You might build different relationships, but the relationship that solidifies and lasts are amongst people that's been through the trenches together. And no matter how small a part they play, like there's been incidents where I was there where somebody that I fuck with seen me about to get into a confrontation or something, or see a move about being about to about to go down, even though they're from a different gang. And if you're from a gang, this is like solid policy that you don't involve yourself in somebody else's shit. And they know, and these individuals, I'm not going to name them, that are my friends that I still keep contact with, they know that if it gets found out that they aid and assist me in some way, they're going to catch a violation. And sometimes that could mean their life because the rules are placed for a reason. And if you break the rules, and if you're not the shot caller and you break the rules, they might justify that as a reason to X you out. So to these individuals that I've done time with that are black, that are Mexican, that are white, that has ever came to my assistance, man, it's all love and respect. And But we understand. I understand the risk that they're taking. They understand the risk that they're taking, and I don't repeat it. They don't repeat it. But for their part, when they seen me in kind of like a hostile situation, they'd come up and my hands down. They come up and they put something on my leg. I reach down and it's a knife. I pick it up. I tuck it, put it up, and they keep moving. Discretion is key. But just by doing that, they put their life at risk. By me going over there, bringing those crutches to SP, that could have got me caught up with my people because I'm going outside of our politics and outside of our car to aid and assist another group, another race. But you hear me repeat often enough that policies are for the do boys that don't know how to conduct themselves, to keep them from getting cars in a wreck. But if you're on man time, homie, that's just what it is. I'm just like these individuals, they're not going to just sit there and watch me be a sitting duck. How can I do less for them in return? And it don't got to be that person that did me a favor. If it's somebody from the Bay came and aid and assist me in some way, shape, or form, when I run into their people and their people need some type of assistance, I'm gonna return the favor because that's how men operate. And we keep it pushing. We don't talk about it. We don't brag about it. We just keep it pushing because those things can be violations, right? Like for me, I'm more at liberty to do what I do because I don't fall under any of these gang rules. The Asian Islander car in there, we're not structured as a gang. There's a spokesman. I've been a spokesman on these different yards for my people, but I'm not a dictator. These guys are not my soldiers or anything. I just have the responsibility to keep everybody safe and to try to make the best decision that I can possibly can for the whole group. I don't get paid for it. I don't get nothing for it. But these gangs that are structured with their shot callers and lieutenants and captains and all that stuff, they're more stringent with the rules. So for me, when I come back and the homie's like, "Hey, we didn't like what you did. You shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have done that." They can't really do nothing but try to hit me, and I'm not tripping. Like they can get it too. That's my mentality because they're not my big homie. They're not my leader. They're not my boss. They're none of that. But I've carried myself in a way throughout my time that my homeboys know that if I feel adamantly about something, they're not going to stand in my way. They might not want nothing to do with it and stay out the way. And even some of them might aid and assist. But outside of that, there's not going to be any issue because at the end of the day, I don't believe that according to the group of people that I run with, that any of them is going to go harder than me when it comes to that funk because I believe in the things that I do. I believe that I'm doing the things for the right reason. I'm not just putting my 2 cents or inserting myself in other people's shit just for the sake of inserting myself, you know. But when it comes to friendships and loyalty and honor and all that, I believe that I can sit here and tell you guys, the viewer, that I abide by that. I live by that to this day. I believe in that wholeheartedly, and that's who I am. So, SP, I shared it. I went over there, gave you some crutches to defend yourself against this Texas dude, and it turned out for them. They got into it good. It was a scuffle. It didn't last very long because we're on the yard, and the gun tower is right there. And I don't care what you're doing, man. When you start hearing them gunshots, your ass is gonna drop to the ground because There's been plenty of incidents where you don't, and you get your freaking head blown off. Welcome to the USP.